So welcome everyone to this webinar about how you can create an automated virtual assistant. This is a webinar we have had in the works for the past year, especially as we've expanded our work with hospitals and medical practices around the world. Um, I think one of the things we've learned over the last year is that having access to medical services remotely is an absolute necessity. And while we can't help with the healthcare side of things, we can help with the sort of administrative and non-urgent request side of things. So that's what we are going to share with you in this webinar today. We're going to share with you how you can use a hospital virtual assistant to field some of those queries that you guys are getting in your hospitals or in your medical practices. So a quick point to note, we have phrased this as a hospital virtual assistant, but it is important to note that this is also applicable for smaller medical practices as well. We work with folks across the gamut of sizes. And I think this webinar is going to be good because I just chugged a large cup of coffee. So I am buzzing with energy right now, or buzzing with caffeine rather. And we can get this webinar started. As always, we like to begin our webinars with intros just so that you guys know who we are, just so that you know where our knowledge is coming from and why you might want to believe us if we suggest that you implement something in your stacks. So I'm your regular host for these webinars. If you've attended these webinars before, you know who I am. I'm Arnav. I'm a marketer over here at TARS, and my job essentially entails creating content just like this webinar to help you guys get the most out of your customer experience, patient experience, and marketing workflows. I'm joined today by Ritam Datta, who is a customer success manager over here at TARS. Ritam is actually, as a customer success manager, he's actually working in the trenches with customers to ensure that they actually see success from using our platform. So he's actually out there optimizing chatbots, building chatbots, ensuring that they are living up to the promises that we make in webinars like this. So I think his insights would be extremely invaluable on this webinar because he's actually gone out there, built and optimized hospital virtual assistants. And instead of having me say any more, Ritam, welcome to this webinar. Um, if you want to
Yeah,
say a couple of lines about yourself, now's your time.
thanks for having me, Arnav. And like as the name suggests, I am from the success team. And to give a broader overview, our job is mainly to deliver success to our customers. And what do we mean by success is basically like right from the onboarding, so that the customer is onboarded. Like the customer is onboarded with our dashboard, and they get value out of our product. So basically, helping customers achieve the ROI that they are basically expected.
Right, right. And in terms of what success we're actually delivering as a company as a whole, we have been around since 2016, helping businesses, organizations of all types improve their customer experience and automate their processes using conversational tech. Conversational tech is just a fancy way of saying chatbots. Rather than delving any more into what we mean by this, because it differs by industry, we're just going to continue with the webinar and you'll see what we mean by improving customer experience and automating processes, because that's exactly what we're talking about today in the context of the healthcare industry and hospitals and medical practices. In terms of what we are going to discuss on this webinar, we have divided this webinar up into 4 parts. We're keeping it super simple today. We're going to first establish the context of why we are on this webinar today by talking about the problem that we are trying to solve with hospital virtual assistants, because we have a firm belief at TARS that you shouldn't implement a new technology into your existing workflows unless there's a good reason for it. You shouldn't implement a new technology for the sake of it. That technology should be solving a very specific problem that you are facing, and it needs to solve that problem well. So the first thing that we need to do in this webinar to sort of justify the use of hospital virtual assistants is to establish the problem that they are solving, which is what we'll do in the first section. In the second section, we'll talk about how hospital virtual assistants, automated hospital virtual assistants, solve the problem that we established in the first step. And in this section, we'll also go over the basics of what a hospital virtual assistant is, where it can be deployed within your existing patient experience, basically all of the nuts and bolts of the sort of what, where, and how of hospital virtual assistants. Then in section 3, this is where things are going to get really fun, I think. We are going to jump into a live demo where Rhythm is actually going to walk us through a current deployment of a hospital virtual assistant on one of our customers' websites. We have some test values so that we can actually go through some of the flows and show you what it looks like to get something done as a patient through one of these hospital virtual assistants. In section 3, that'll really give you a sense of what we were talking about in sections 1 and 2, because at the end of the day, we have found that we can talk to you for days on end about the value of chatbots, about the value of virtual assistants, but it really doesn't hit home until you actually see it in action and you see it delivering value. So that's what we're going to try to do in section 3. And then finally in section 4, we're going to open the floor up for questions. Usually we try to reach that point by about 45 minutes in the session, so that you guys have enough time and enough access to us to get all of your doubts cleared up. I will say though, if you have questions along the way, feel free to drop them in the Q&A. Feel free to drop them in the chat, because if the question makes sense in the context of the flow, in the context of the webinar, we'll be sure to answer them as we go along. Also, really quick, before we jump into the actual content of this webinar, I want to make it clear that we are recording this webinar. We will send you a copy of this webinar once it's done. Zoom takes a little bit of time to process the webinar, but once it's processed, we will send it over to you guys as quickly as we can. So with that, let's jump right in to the first section, the non-urgent query problem. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning, we aren't really healthcare experts ourselves. We're not doctors, so we can't really help hospitals or medical practices be more efficient at their job of delivering healthcare. But what we are good at and what we do know is customer service. We know how to run a customer service operation. And the way we think of hospitals, or at least part of what hospitals and medical practices do, is that they play the customer service game. And what I mean by that is that if you run a hospital, if you run a medical practice, I don't need to tell you this, you guys are on this webinar right now, you're getting thousands of non-urgent patient requests every single day. And what I mean by a non-urgent patient request is something that doesn't require the patient to see a doctor immediately. So they want to book an appointment, they want to reschedule an appointment, they want to cancel an appointment, maybe they want to check a report. We'll get into more of the use cases later on in this, but those are the sorts of requests that we are going to be talking about today. And not only do hospitals and medical practices have to address these queries, but they have to address these queries in a timely manner. They have to be able to respond to these queries quickly, especially because they're delivering healthcare services, because people don't really like to experience friction, especially when it comes to their healthcare. They expect a prompt response. They expect it to be as seamless as possible. Now, the issue, obviously, is that achieving that outcome, addressing those queries as quickly as possible, is hard, because most hospitals rely on human beings to field those queries. You have a front desk, you have a call center if you're a larger hospital, and inevitably the number of queries coming in is going to be too much for your agents or your staff to handle. We've all been there before, even if you're a smaller practice. If the folks at the front desk, if the staff are held up on a call, anyone else who calls at that time is going to be on hold for a little bit. Similarly, if you're a larger hospital and you have a call center, I mean, this is true across industries. Your customer service team does not scale at the same rate as the number of patients you get. So the end result is that inevitably people are going to be stuck on hold, and that's really what the end result of this situation is. When you're getting all of these non-urgent requests and you don't really have the manpower to address them all in a quick way, it's really a lose-lose, because your patients are stuck waiting on hold, or they're stuck in these cumbersome IVR systems where it says, press 1 to speak to this department, press 2 to speak to this other department, just so that your agents can get a better handle on it and structure the call in a better way so they don't have to ask for as much information over the phone. And equally, we don't talk about this enough, it's also bad for your staff and agents, because they get overburdened with queries. We know that across industries, there's high turnover in customer service roles. often, especially when you're dealing with a large number of queries, because it's stressful when you have a bunch of queries coming in and you have to deal with all of them in a quick way. And maybe sometimes at peak hours, you can't deal with all of them immediately. Someone stays on hold for a little bit and they get a little bit annoyed, and then you have to handle that situation, even though it's out of your control. You're, as an agent, as a staff member, you're doing the best job that you can. Um, so this is really the problem that we are trying to solve with hospital virtual assistants. This is the result we are trying to avoid with hospital virtual assistants. We are trying to reduce hold times for patients. We're trying to prevent patients from being stuck on these confusing IVR systems. And we're trying to give your staff and your customer service agents the reinforcements that they need to provide a good patient experience to your patients. I'm going to see how we're doing on time over here, just so that I make sure to go through this next section as quickly or as slowly as possible. We seem to be doing well. So that brings us to the solution: automated virtual assistants, which is why we're all on this webinar today. And as I mentioned, we need to get a couple of basics out of the way. I think before we jump into how hospital virtual assistants address the problems that we just spoke about, it's worthwhile getting on the same page about what exactly an automated hospital virtual assistant is, what they can achieve, what sorts of tasks they can complete, what sorts of tasks they can help patients complete, and most importantly, because we get this question often, where exactly they figure into your existing online presence. Do they go on your website? Do they go on your app? Where can patients access these virtual assistants? And then finally, we'll talk about how exactly they address the problems we just spoke about. So right off the bat, an automated hospital virtual assistant, as the name suggests, is the way you can think about it is it's essentially an automated customer service rep or a receptionist that can walk patients through repetitive non-urgent requests. So again, those non-urgent requests that we were talking about earlier, they can help patients manage their appointments. They can answer FAQs that the patient might have about your hospital. They can help the patient pull up medical records, pull up prescriptions, basically anything that a patient would otherwise do by calling you or jumping on a live chat, if that's the sort of technology that you're currently using in your hospital. A hospital virtual assistant can help you do that. And essentially anything that doesn't involve actually administering healthcare to the patient, a hospital virtual assistant can help your patients walk through that process. In terms of where exactly people can access these virtual assistants, broadly speaking, there are actually 4 places over here. We missed out one in the slide, but we'll show it to you at the end of the webinar in the demo. The first place that you can deploy a hospital virtual assistant is as a website widget. So on your page, we've all been to websites before, regardless of what the website is, where there's a tiny little widget in the bottom right corner. You click on that, it pops up a chat where you talk to an agent or you talk to a chatbot. Your agent can live over there. A lot of our customers, as you'll see in the demo section, use our virtual assistants as a widget on their site. The second place where a lot of our customers use their hospital virtual assistants is, this is especially true if they're a larger medical services provider. If they have a mobile app, they embed the chatbot right in, because our chatbots are obviously just web pages under the hood. They're HTML, CSS, JavaScript, so you can have a web view in your app and have the chatbot embedded in there. The third way we've seen folks embed or use these chatbots in their patient experience workflows is through an iframe. So that basically means a chatbot embedded right into the page. They don't have to click on a widget. It's just there on the page, embedded in for the patient to interact with. And there's actually a fourth way of interacting with these chatbots, which we'll show you in the demo section, which is through WhatsApp. So if your patients are hanging out on WhatsApp, your hospital virtual assistant can interact with them over there, and that's actually a great way to use these virtual assistants, because WhatsApp chats are persistent. Once a user has a chat with the virtual assistant, that chat remains in their chat, and you can re-engage them through that chat with notifications and the sort, to keep the patient experience going longer, versus on websites where they have the chat and then they close the page and then they're done. So that is where you can deploy these chatbots. And with all of those basics out of the way, we can talk about how these virtual assistants actually address the problems we were talking about of long wait times, cumbersome IVR systems, and overburdened staff, because the number of requests you're getting is outstripping the capacity of your agents to respond to them. And the way we like to think about it is that by handling these repetitive, non-urgent queries that your agents are getting, they're sort of, one, they're giving your patients instant access to the answers that they need. Because obviously with a chatbot, there is no associated hold time. One chatbot can have nearly infinite conversations with patients at the same time, regardless of what time of day it is. They can have that conversation at noon. They can have that conversation at 3 a.m. on Christmas Day, regardless of what time of day it is, regardless of what day of the year it is. A chatbot can have infinite conversations at the same time because it's a piece of software. And what that means is that for these non-urgent repetitive queries that your patients have, they can get instant answers. They don't have to wait on hold. They don't have to wait for an agent to become available. They can start talking to the chatbot immediately. The second big advantage of these things is that by sharing the load with your agents, by taking on these repetitive queries, by taking on these non-urgent queries, or at least a good chunk of them, in our experience, up to 80% of them, they reduce the burden on your staff. The way I like to think about it is that in most customer service operations, regardless of industry, whether you're running a hospital, whether you're running an e-commerce store, up to 80% of the queries that you get usually fall into this bucket of repetitive, easy to answer queries that most people ask. And a chatbot can handle all of those queries and take them off the plate of your agent. And then what your agents can do is they can focus on the remaining 20% of queries that actually require their expertise. It might be a little bit more complex. It might be a little bit more unique of a question. And your agents can focus on answering those because those queries actually need their expertise. And those folks don't have to wait on hold as much because all of these other folks who have these repetitive queries are talking to the chatbot instead. And if we boil that down to a couple of simple statements that sort of capture what the value of these virtual assistants is, it's that you deliver a better patient experience to your patients because they're not waiting on hold as much. They're getting instant access to the information that they need. And they're just getting a better patient experience overall. And you see greater staff productivity because, again, your agents aren't wasting all of their time fielding these repetitive queries that don't require their expertise. They can focus all of their attention with precision on the requests that need their attention, the complex ones that a chatbot maybe can't handle and need that human touch. So this is the end result that we are trying to achieve. This is sort of the promised land of using hospital virtual assistants. And I hope with that, I've created an image in your mind of what it can look like to use one of these hospital virtual assistants. I think that now is probably a good time to hand it off to Rhythm to show you guys what all of this looks like in practice. Because again, at the end of the day, we can talk about it as much as we want, but it really doesn't hit home until you guys see it in action. And I'm actually looking at the time over here and we're making great time right now. We actually finished with this section way earlier than expected. And that's a good thing because now we can spend more time in the actual demo and in the Q&A section, which I think are really the important parts of this webinar session. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen over here, hand it over to Rhythm, who's going to walk us through possibly one of the coolest demos I've seen built on the TARS platform. Honestly, the integrations that they use in this demo are quite amazing. So Rhythm, over to you.
Yeah. So can you allow me the screen
Oh,
sharing
yep,
thing?
absolutely. Um,
So yeah, one more benefit that I would like to talk about is that a virtual assistant basically reduces the margin of error because it allows the end patient to have a direct conversation with the hospital management system with the integrations in place.
right.
Rather than having a middleman or a middle agent, we can directly go through the virtual assistant and like communicate with the hospital management system basically.
Right, right. Because I mean, presumably, I mean, the way we think about it for other marketing use cases is your CRM is the brain of your marketing operation or your customer service operation, and your chatbot is sort of you could think about it as the mouth because it's the part that's talking. Similarly, over here, your hospital management system, your patient management system is the brain of your hospital, and the chatbot is the mouth, and it hooks up directly with that brain. Unlike with a human agent where they have to manually access things on their computer, they have to manually enter things on their computer. Since it's a piece of software, it hooks up directly into that system, and can share information across
Yeah,
the
yeah.
systems.
So yeah, first of all, something about the client, about the customer. So International Medical Center is one of the largest hospitals in the entire Middle East. And these guys, like some of the most premium hospitals in the world, they have a patient experience team whose sole job is to make the patient experience better so that they have better conversation with the doctors, and they have basically access to their own patient portal. So like first of all, I would like to start with the fourth type of deployment that you were speaking about, which is the WhatsApp. So WhatsApp, basically you can engage your customers, your patients in the WhatsApp chatbot is using notifications. Either you can push a notification and allow them to converse with the chatbot, or you can use this QR code. So what International Medical Center does is they use this QR code in all of their hard copies of pamphlets, or it can be the reports, it can be the banners outside their hospital. So the patients can basically scan this QR code and get started with conversing with the hospital management system or the virtual assistant in this case. So yeah, the other thing is the web widget, which I'll take you through. So this is a multilingual chatbot. Now I'll click on virtual assistant English, and it basically asks me like if I'm a new visitor or a returning visitor, or if I have any general queries. The general queries has basically some static content about the FAQs, like the repetitive questions that you asked, that you told earlier. Now, if I'm a new visitor, it will basically take me to the patient portal registration page, on which I can basically register myself as a patient, and then I can log into my patient portal and book appointments and stuff. Now, if I go to I'm a returning visitor, it will basically ask for my MR number, which is nothing but a medical record number. Now, if I click on medical record number, they have given us a dummy medical record ID, which is 314134. Now, what it does in real time is it will basically trigger an OTP to your phone number. Now, once you receive that OTP, you have to enter it so that the chatbot can basically authenticate you. And so as you can see, it basically welcomes me with my name. So the name in this case is basically test. Now I can show that over patient information. So now basically the chatbot is acting as a hospital management system. It basically has access to the hospital management file, and it can like fetch all my details, fetch all the doctor's details, fetch all my reports so that I can download it. So yeah, as you can see, the full name over here is Tess. I can see my medical record number, the age, gender, and all of these things. Now, the main part, like why basically it is important to have a virtual assistant basically acting as a front end for your hospital management system, is for booking appointments basically. And for a hospital like International Medical Center, like they have about 250 doctors and about 59 clinics. Now, if I click on book an appointment, it will first ask me if I know the doctor's name or not. If I don't know the doctor's name, it will show me the list of clinics and departments that they basically have. And yeah, if I choose the cardiology department, it will show me. So this is all happening like it is conversing with the hospital management system of the international medical system. So what I can do is like I can see all these doctors, I can select any doctor, I can go through their entire calendar. Now, as you can see this, so this makes the chatbot a bit more engaging. Like, hi, I'm Dr. Ahmed. I belong to the medicine department. What can I help you with today? Now, if I
So,
click on,
really quick, when you say that it's conversing with the hospital management system, do you mean that it's pulling all of the pictures of the doctors, the names of the doctors who belong to that department that you selected from the hospital management system? That's not hard coded into the chatbot, right?
that is not hard coded. It is like all these things are dynamically fetched from the hospital management system.
Got it.
So if they are updating the hospital management system with new doctors or new departments, the same things will be reflected over here.
Got it. So once you deploy this chatbot, a value of it is because it's able to talk to the hospital management system, you don't need to make any additional changes to the chatbot. If you make a change in your hospital management system, if you add a doctor, you remove a doctor, that change will automatically be reflected in the patient experience while interacting with this chatbot, because it's dynamically pulling that data in.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah, that's the case. So if in case like suppose I want to book an appointment with Dr. Ahmed, now I can basically just click on this button and the next immediate slot will be booked. Now, if I click on all available time slots, it will show me the it will basically now fetch the information from the doctor's calendar, like basically what all slots are available for this particular doctor. And I can basically click on any one of these slots and the appointment will be booked in real time. So that's why like I'm not clicking on anything because it will get booked in real time and might cause trouble for some other patient as well. So yeah, that's pretty much it. And like apart from these things, we can basically fetch the doctor reports as the medical reports as well. It can be your prescription, it can be it can be a lab report or anything like anything that gets updated on the hospital management system or the patient portal can basically be fetched through this chatbot.
Got it. That makes a lot of sense. And I think this is a good demonstration of what exactly is possible through these systems. I know that because we have test values over here, we don't have access to every single feature, but these are the two features that we usually get asked about the most: accessing patient information, because you can use that feature versus in a bunch of ways to achieve a lot of things, like for example accessing reports, and the second one is obviously booking and managing appointments, because I mean, I think regardless of what industry you're working in, booking an appointment with someone is always a pain. It's sort of a necessary. I was talking to a friend who's actually working on something like this, and we were discussing it, and he the way he spoke about it was that booking an appointment is sort of a necessary but annoying hurdle on the way to achieve something else. You never book an appointment to book the appointment. You book an appointment to see someone at the end of it, and this helps reduce the friction in that process. Now, with that, I think that we've what we can do is we can actually open the floor up to the audience in case you guys have any questions, in case you guys want to see something else. We can, oh, actually we can show,
We
yeah.
do have the WhatsApp chatbot as
Oh,
well.
great, great. So actually, before we do that, why don't we take a look at what this looks like in WhatsApp? Um,
Right. So this is how a business account looks like in WhatsApp. You will basically get the green tick over here. You can see like if you can click over here. So they have basically got their Facebook account verified from WhatsApp. And so that's why you can see the green tick over here. Now, if I put any message over here, it will basically start the conversation. Now, with the rolling out of WhatsApp notification features, we can do it either ways. Like the communication can be started by the patient or the communication can be started by the WhatsApp chatbot itself. So basically, we can like trigger a notification to all the patients whose you can say an appointment is coming up. We can tell them like, hey, your appointment is scheduled for the next day at this time. Just a reminder, like so if I basically select two, which is the virtual assistant English.
and I think one of the underrated values of having a chatbot on WhatsApp, especially if your patients are hanging out on WhatsApp, is that oftentimes I find that when businesses try to develop an app, you have to build everything from the ground up. Even if you're outsourcing it, they're building things from the ground up. They might be using some tools along the way, but the end result is you essentially are reinventing the wheel. With WhatsApp, what you're doing is you're piggybacking on Facebook's design team's prowess. So they've designed the entire interface of WhatsApp, and you're using that to engage with your customers. So you get their buttery smooth interface, the millions of dollars that they've invested in designing this interface, and you can use that for your hospital to interact with your patients. And the second advantage of that that I feel people don't talk about enough is that if you can interact with your customers on WhatsApp, you don't have to ask them to download an entire separate app, because we have noticed that there is some form of fatigue in the market where people do not want to download new apps on their phone. I mean, we've all been there before. Just yesterday, I was on a service that asked me to download an app. I didn't do it because I can't have yet another app on my phone. But if I can interact with my hospital on WhatsApp, that completely negates that problem, because I don't need to download a new app to interact with them. I have everything at my fingertips, just as convenient as if I did download an app, but in WhatsApp, which obviously is yeah, but in WhatsApp, which is obviously
Absolutely. Yeah.
already
And
installed on my phone.
like it is a two-way communication that is taking place. Like you can either initiate it from your end or the patient can initiate it from their end.
Right,
So as you
right,
can see, like we have come up till choosing the department part. Now, if I again choose cardiology over here, it will show me the doctor list who are working in the cardiology department. So yeah, and if I select any of the doctors, it will then show me the available time slots for this particular doctor.
great. Yeah, so essentially the entire functionality that we are able to deliver through the web-based chatbot, you can deliver through WhatsApp as well.
Right, right, absolutely.
Great.
And yes, WhatsApp will allow you to push files as well. Like if in case your prescription is, I'm sorry, like if in case your reports are ready, you can push it through WhatsApp chatbot, through the WhatsApp notifications. Yeah.
Amazing. Um, awesome. So if anyone out there has any questions, feel free to drop them in the Q&A section. Feel free to drop them in the chat. Otherwise, we've made great time on this webinar. Which is honestly a good thing, because I feel if there's a shorter way to convey a message, might as well use that shorter way to convey the message. It doesn't make the message any less compelling. It just makes it easier to consume. And rather than, if you guys don't have any questions, rather than staying on this webinar, what you guys can do is jump off the webinar and use the remaining 30 minutes that you guys allocated for this webinar to go and start building your own virtual assistant on the TARS platform. Now would be a great time to start once you've just seen it in action. Let me go ahead and share my screen again. For all of you who have to leave right now, because I know that we all have busy days. It's a Thursday today. This is how you can get in touch with us. You can contact us on the number at the top. It's also got a WhatsApp chatbot integrated into it. So if you message us on WhatsApp on this number at the top, if you don't want to call us, if you don't want to text us, you can actually see a WhatsApp chatbot in action. You can also email me at arnav@hellotars.com, or get more information on our website at hellotars.com. Abhilash, who's on this call, might share a link to book a demo in the chat. So if you just wait for a minute, I think he can share that, or actually I can share that. Let me go ahead and do that. Oh, there we go. Abhilash has us covered. He just shared a link for you guys to book a demo with us. But with all of that out of the way, I think Rhythm and I will sit here for another 5 minutes or so in case you guys have any questions. And if you guys do have questions, we'll sit for longer, obviously, on the webinar. But barring that, we can close out this session and send you guys the recording. Now the awkward wait for our customers to, or our attendees to type their questions out is Wait. Oh, we have a question over here. The integration with WhatsApp is chargeable, but Telegram is free. Is it the same with TARS? So I guess we can divide that question up into two parts. The first part is true. WhatsApp is chargeable and Telegram is free. But the very big difference between WhatsApp and Telegram that you need to ask yourself is, are your customers on Telegram? Because if you say you have a Telegram bot, but none of your customers, none of your patients use Telegram, then there's no sense in having that chatbot over there because no one's going to be able to access it. Hardly anyone's going to install a new messenger app just to interact with your chatbot. Though I will say, I have noticed that a lot. I'm a big Telegram fan myself. I build a lot of Telegram chatbots in my free time, and I've noticed that a lot more people, especially since WhatsApp changed their privacy policy, have been downloading Telegram. So maybe it would work to make a Telegram chatbot, especially right now. In terms of what the case is with TARS, we, especially for our web-based chatbots, for example, we don't charge we don't really charge on a per chat basis. We have tiers that you can see on our website. In those tiers, I think there are limits on how many chats you can get, but each additional chat is not going to, it should not incur an additional cost for you, especially on the web side. On the WhatsApp side, on the other hand, I believe, Rhythm, you can correct me if I'm wrong because you deal with this more often. If I believe for template messages, for example, you do have to pay. You do have to pay per message, but that's not us that's charging you. That's WhatsApp. Rhythm, you probably have more information on this in terms of the
Yeah, that's right. So for the template message, we charge basically what WhatsApp charges in your particular region.
right.
So for India, I guess it's something about $0.0003 per message. So yeah. So that's what we also charge basically for each template message.
Yeah. And over here, it says it'll be a good way to test it before launching it on WhatsApp. I presume you're talking about the web-based chatbots. Yes, absolutely. So the process of getting approved on WhatsApp takes a couple of weeks. It's frictionless. And if you get in touch with us, we can help you do the entire process. Rhythm has helped several folks actually go through the WhatsApp approval process. I think you did it for IMC as well, right? The demo we just
Right.
showed.
And it's a
Um,
pretty easy process as well. Like
yeah,
you just need to fill out a form and the rest is taken care by the WhatsApp team or the
right,
Facebook team.
right. It's honestly most of the process just involves waiting for them. As I understand it, it just involves waiting, which is
Right.
quite easy. And while you're waiting, you can obviously build out the entire flow that you want in the TARS builder. And you can test it out in the web-based version, which we also hope that you guys implement onto your website as well. As you can see, you can do both options just to give users a choice, because obviously the best approach to patient experience is to give users a choice of how they can interact with you. Okay, so we'll wait for a couple of more minutes for some more questions. If there aren't any, great. We'll end the recording right now. We'll end the session right now, and then we'll send it out to you guys. I am extremely glad that I drank a whole mug of coffee. You would not believe it if I told you, but I was on a call with Rhythm right before this webinar to prepare for it, to just sort of go through a technical run through to make sure that everything was working on either of our ends. And I was practically falling asleep. And immediately after I jumped off that call, I ran to the coffee machine, made a cup of coffee, ran back here for the webinar. And while we were waiting, I put my mic on mute, put my video off, and I drank the entire cup of coffee. I mean, I'm probably not going to have sensation in my mouth for a couple of days now because the coffee was extremely hot, but it was worth it because now I have caffeine coursing through my veins. Um, all right, I'm going to. Okay, does the chatbot learn on its own using AI ML, or is it a Q&A integrated with a back-end database? I'm going to give my attempt at an answer to this, Rhythm, and then you can take over if I got anything wrong, because you obviously deal with this stuff every day. The TARS builder is quite versatile. You can use it in any way that you want. So what some customers do is if they just want to answer FAQs, what they do is they have a hard-coded backend where they just have a fixed flow where people can interact with buttons to get the information that they need. They might integrate that with, and then on the other side of the spectrum is you have an AI and ML based system where you integrate with a service like Dialogflow. You sense the user's intent, and based on that intent, you can pull information from a backend database. And you can obviously build anything along that spectrum. So what some people do is they might have that hard coded flow, but they might hook up through an API to their database on the backend to pull information in based on the selections that users make. Other people might have hard-coded responses to questions that users might have that have been detected by an AI or ML system like Dialogflow. So the building process is quite versatile and specific to your requirements. Our team, Rhythm, or someone on his team rather, on the customer success side, will help you implement that. Did I miss anything, Rhythm?
No, I think you covered it all. So yeah.
Great, great.
So we can basically connect it with any external system which has the NLP or AI capabilities using APIs. So
Right.
yeah.
I will say one thing that I will note about AI and ML, because we get this question often, is that I have found that AI and machine learning and NLP, these are all buzzwords that people think of when they're using chatbots. They assume that every chatbot has to have AI and machine learning. But in my experience, often the best chatbot experiences are the ones that don't use AI and machine learning. And the reason for that is because you can give a user an uh, open-ended input box at the beginning, just saying, how can I help you? And then ask them to type out the question in their own words. But then there are two issues that you run up against. The first one is that users often don't know how to phrase the problem that they're facing. They need some help in phrasing it. So giving them the quick reply options, giving them the buttons to structure the response is often appreciated. And second, as good as AI, ML, and NLP technology is right now, it's not really at the point where it's perfect. And the issue with that is that it takes one bad experience, it takes one wrongly phrased query from the user to break the system. And essentially what happens in a lot of cases is the user might not phrase it in a way that the machine learning or the NLP engine likes. And then the chatbot's forced to say, I didn't get that. Can you select from these buttons? And then you're back to square one where they have to select from a set of buttons. And that's obviously not a great experience for the user because in their mind, it alienates them from the technology. Rather than if you just show them the buttons in the first place and then they don't have that disappointment when it's not able to respond to them. And correct me if I'm wrong, Rhythm, but we've actually had a customer who made the switch from a hard-coded system where they had buttons to structure the response. They decided based on their live chat data they were going to train an NLP model, which was actually pretty good when we were testing it out. They
Right.
deployed it, and then they found that their interaction rates went way down because people didn't really know what to type out when they were greeted by this open text field, and they ended up switching back to their non-AI, non-NLP chatbot, which actually engaged people more. So even though the technology was less advanced, the end patient experience was considerably better when they removed the artificial intelligence from their chatbot.
Yeah, that happened. And also, like, I would say the person who is going to configure the training phrases of the ML and AI should be a good SEO guy for that particular company, because otherwise you won't know what keywords are being used by your audience.
True.
So that's the main thing.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. We're also facing issues identifying emoji from users and responding to them. Yeah, I mean, these are the sorts of growing pains of NLP that the industry as a whole is going to have to deal with. Um, uh, is going to have to deal with in the coming years. I mean, it's not a great experience to tell your users, "Oh, tell us your query right now, and don't use emojis," because that's not how users work. When they chat with people, they want to type the way that they type when they're talking to their friends and family, and they use emoji when they're talking to their friends and family. So it doesn't make sense to not accept emoji, um, which is why I personally uh, am a big fan of the sort of guided flow, or the way actually one of my colleagues, Levi, who is hosting a webinar tomorrow, by the way, a plug for that, puts it, is an on the rails flow. That's why I'm a big fan of an on the rails flow, because it doesn't run into these issues. for all of those, all of you out there who are in the States or in Canada, I don't know if you guys have interacted with the Lemonade app before, but they're an insurance company, and they have an onboarding experience that uses a chatbot to onboard you and to give you a quote for your insurance. And that chatbot, if you think about it, when you're interacting with it, doesn't really involve any AI. They have buttons and they have very structured inputs to like input your address. But just the fact that it's framed as a chat interaction makes you feel like it's magical and makes you feel like there's some AI involved. But there's actually, if you think about it, not much AI, if at all, involved on the back end, because I mean, you don't really need AI to detect if someone's giving you their name or not. You can say, "What's your name?" Then they share their name with you. Where's the AI over there? Or you ask them for their birthday, and then they share their birthday with you. There's no. I mean, maybe you need. I mean, to be quite honest with you, you can figure out how they've phrased their birthday using regular expression, using regex. You don't need. It's. I think it's a bit overkill to train an entire an entire NLP engine to collect basic information like that. But yeah, these are great questions. Keep them coming. The link to tomorrow's webinar. Yes, guys, we are hosting another webinar tomorrow. Similar topic, different industry. So Levi from our team is going to be hosting a webinar tomorrow about how IT departments, primarily in the public sector, can automate away the repetitive queries that they get. I mean, I worked in the IT department at my college as a campus job, and the queries that you get are extremely repetitive. How do I install my printer drivers? How do I set up my email? Sorry, not college, in high school. How do I set up my email? How do I set up my Outlook? You don't need a human being's expertise to answer those questions. A chatbot can walk them through that process. So again, your IT support team can focus on the questions that really require their attention. And I know that a lot of hospitals are actually large organizations, just like public sector organizations. So it's actually useful for hospitals as well. So if there's anyone out there in the audience right now who works at a large hospital, this might be useful for you guys as well. I mean, the way I like to think about it with these public sector oriented webinars is dealing with public sector customer experience is sort of the highest level of difficulty. If you can deal with anything in the public sector, if you can deal with anything in a public sector organization, everything else is easy. Because again, I mean, think about the DMV as an example. If you can deal with customer service in a DMV, anything else, even a hospital, seems easy in comparison. So be sure to sign up for that webinar tomorrow if you work at a larger organization where this is an issue. And obviously, even if you don't work in an IT department, the learnings that you get from the webinar can be reapplied to any customer service use case. So if you want to learn a little bit more about how you can deploy chatbots to answer repetitive, non-urgent requests, be sure to sign up for that webinar, because you can use all of the knowledge that Levi shares with you guys tomorrow in your hospital virtual assistant as well. Awesome. So we actually managed to stretch the session out to almost 50 minutes over here. I think we're going to close out the session over here. Again, if you guys want to reach out to us, the contact details are up on the screen. Also, go to the link that Abhilash shared in the chat. You can sign up for our webinar over there. You can also go through our webpage and book a demo with us. If you want to learn more about this stuff, the demo is completely free. And the way I like to think about a demo is you will jump on a Zoom call with someone who is a lot smarter about this stuff than I am, and essentially get a one-on-one webinar where you have direct access to one of our chatbot experts who will walk you through what's possible with chatbots, what's not possible with chatbots, because it's important. It's just as important to talk about that as well. And then you can take a call from there, whether it's the sort of thing that you want to implement or not want to implement, because oftentimes it doesn't make sense to implement a chatbot, just as oftentimes it does make sense to implement a chatbot as well. So thank you guys for joining. I'm going to drag this end out as quickly as possible to give you guys the opportunity to drop any last minute questions that you have. But barring those questions, I am going to end this session. Thanks everyone for joining. And thank you, Rizwan, for joining us as well. Um,
Thanks, Rajiv. Thanks for having me.
cheers.
Yeah.
We will send the recording to you guys shortly.